Recording in progress with Wall Street Journal and national best-selling author Cap Trieger. And with me as well is a very special guest, Monica Hooks of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. But before we get into further introductions, I'd like to take a moment to just go over a few housekeeping items. We've muted all of the attendee lines upon entry. However, if you would at any time during our discussion like to ask either Monica or Cap a question, please use the chat feature that Zoom provides, and we will put your questions in the queue and take them as they come up. I am Eric Pinkert from Brand Culture, and I have the distinct pleasure of helping Cap orchestrate this series, and I am just tickled pink to have Monica with us today here on this final day of February. And the reason for that is the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative is a program that supports women's entrepreneurship through leadership development, funding opportunities, and a heck of a lot more. And so I am really looking forward to having Monica tell us a bit about the organization and its mission. And thank you for joining us today. So Monica, let's put the first question to you. Tell us a little bit about WEI.
Thank you so much, Eric. Well, greetings to everyone. This is really exciting to be in this forum where we're talking about finding your way, which I think is so foundational for the entrepreneurship journey. My name is Monica Dolores Hooks. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which we affectionately call WE here in Atlanta. Our mission is actually to empower entrepreneurship through women. And we say it that way because we know that good business, when women are at the table, that means good business, and the numbers bear out. Our incubator is the only municipally funded incubator of its kind in the nation, and we're really, really proud about that. The structure of the incubator is a 15-month program focused on 4 pillars, which includes business analysis, learning and leadership development, strategic partnerships, and then funding opportunities. To date, we have had 75 businesses matriculate into the program over the course of 5 years. And those 75 businesses have generated over 1,000 jobs, actually 1,003 jobs for the city of Atlanta, and garnered $7.3 million in capital investment. So we're really, really proud of the program, from the structure to the impact to our community. And I'm thrilled to be here to have a conversation with Cap and Eric and talk about finding your way.
Well, that is wonderful, and thank you for the precision of those numbers. Not just 1,000, but 1,003, which shows the bona fides. So we will look forward to hearing more about that. But without further ado, Cap, as I always ask you, could you provide a quick synopsis slash overview of Finding the Way for any of those who have joined us who may not have had a chance to delve into the book yet?
Thanks, Eric. I'm real humbled and flattered to be here with you and Monica, and just excited about Monica's great work and the important things that she's doing. Finding the Way, The Entrepreneur's Tale, is a business fiction book. And basically, I guess you'd call it a golden fleece tale. You got an entrepreneur who has an idea, wants to start a new company, and in the process of finding the way to success, maybe learns to be a leader as he goes through sort of a roller coaster of adventures, and hopefully grows along the way with great mentors and challenges and lessons. And I think the idea is that readers can grow and learn along the way as well, and hopefully be prepared to be entrepreneurs and leaders themselves.
Awesome. That is indeed a succinct and cogent and articulate synopsis. So thank you, Cap. As you know, the title of this webinar series is The 5 Essentials, and I'd just like to ask you to weigh in on a bit about why the 5 Essentials are so important, and what you might say to entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who may be listening.
Thanks, Eric. Well, first, I want to be clear. I don't want to make it sound like there are only 5 essentials to success, so that's all that you'll find in the book. I expect there's plenty more to it, and hopefully the book covers a lot of other ground. But I do think that these, what we're calling the 5 essentials now, are an important part of the book. I think there are a lot of resources, great resources for entrepreneurs that talk about, a lot of people would say it's essential to build your business on a foundation of integrity. You could say it's essential to commit to serving your customer, to take ownership and responsibility. And I think there are a lot of things that we could agree on, and great books and resources. But one of the reasons I wrote this book is that as I mentor and invest in companies, I keep coming back to these 5 key things that I think are a big deal that other people don't emphasize. I hand out a lot of books on other subjects, but I can't find one that I think does a great job on business model, or understanding, for instance, what your customer is really buying. And if I could, I might not have had the sort of urgency to write this book, but I do think these are basically things that I look at different than everyone else, that hopefully are a big part of the formula to success.
Yeah, well, and that's an excellent reason for writing a book, is when you can't find what you want to put in it anywhere else. So last week we talked about the first principle of clearly understanding and articulating your purpose, and this week's focus is, as you said, on the second underrated essential: understand what your customer is really buying. So I'd first like to ask Monica, in particular, given your experience working with women entrepreneurs, how important do you think this distinction is between what you might think your customer is buying and what they're actually buying? And why do you think this can be so challenging?
Well, I really wanted to tackle this question because I think it's primary to the success of entrepreneurship. And certainly it's primary to the businesses that go through our program, which is focused on the foundations of your entrepreneurship journey, right? And so one critical foundation that we have found is that we want to know if people are buying what you're selling. And, so many of the businesses come into the program with a great idea and they've got a working business model, but they haven't really honed in on who their ideal or who their very specific target customer is. And that creates a lot of confusion and a lot of gray area, which I don't think you can really have if you're looking for success in this space. I think you have to be laser focused on your solution and who you're providing that solution to. I think maybe in layman's terms, it's so challenging because people are trying to be everything to everyone. And I think a lot of women come into the entrepreneurship space, when I try and bring back and, try to refine it down to a niche or a very specific target customer, they'll say, well, but we're going to leave this person out, but we're going to leave that person out. We're going to leave X and Y. And it's kind of a bit counterintuitive. The more specific you can be, the more potential you really have to scale that solution to the broader market. But so I think I think those are some of the reasons it becomes challenging. People come into this space wanting to have a big solution and wanting to be impactful. And the truth is, less is more.
Excellent. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that, given that less is more is a lesson that we should learn. Cap, I'd love to have you weigh in on that same question. Why do you think that this can be such a challenge for people to figure out?
Thank you. And Monica, I really want to echo what she said. I think one of my mentors said, as a small business, it's hard to be a shotgun. You need to be a laser. And it's just, you're limited in your time and focus. And I do think we tend to focus on sort of the surface issues. And I think really, if you understand what your customer is really buying, that tells you the business that you're really in. And that can affect your product positioning, your delivery, your pricing, and really just about every consideration of what you do in your business. And I think really smart marketing people think a lot about this, try to understand their audience. But I haven't seen anybody that I think does a great job of explaining to entrepreneurs how it can sort of drive what you do in all of your business. And so I'll use the example of a construction company I'm involved in. Our customers are big, Fortune 500, Russell 2000 corporations, and usually hire somebody higher up in one of these bigger companies says they want to renovate a building or add a new structure. And so somebody within that organization who buys this, maybe a project manager and their boss, is really our customer that we sell to. And so I always think about what's that customer really buying. Maybe their first priority is they want to not get fired. The second priority, maybe they want to look good at their company. Maybe the number three priority might be if they want to meet their budget and schedule. And those are trust issues. They're trusting you when they buy your solution. And then the fourth one that sometimes even beats trust is like. They end up buying who they like. Although trust and like often go hand in hand. And finally, if you want them to keep coming back, make their life easy. And so, I tell you we're in the construction business, but if I'm meeting with them, I want to remind them that we're actually in the business of helping our customer not get fired, making them look good, helping them meet their budget and schedule and be trusted to do those things, but also to be liked by them and make their life easy. And that's the business we're really in. And so it affects how we do everything, including our sense of priority. Probably a lot more to be said, but hopefully that kind of explains sort of a high level how I look at it.
No, that's great. And I would like to turn it to you, Monica, just to the point that Cap makes about understanding what really is the motivation of your customer, and the fact that those motivations may be different from customer to customer. I think as Cap writes in the book, if you've sold to one hospital, well, then you've sold to one hospital. And so the motivations across customers may be very different. How do you counsel someone to suss out the difference between what they might on the surface appear to be buying versus what they're actually buying?
Yeah, we use the good old business model canvas. Actually, I laugh about that because so many programs use it, but I actually think that our program tries to apply a different angle to it around the customer base. And in fact, for the first part of the program, we really spend time on those first three quadrants of the value prop, the first four, the value proposition, the customer personas, the relationship with those customer personas, and then the channels to get to those customers. So we're really trying to break down the marketing funnel, the customer journey, and help the CEOs or the founders of these companies understand what their product is doing for each of these personas. I will tell you though, I think it's still a challenge. I think, and also customer discovery. Until the businesses get out there and either survey or create a feedback loop or get some sort of data or information back on how people are reacting to their service or product, and then iterate and make changes on that, you're not really going to get down into those personas.
Right.
But these frameworks have withstood the test of time because they work if you actually work through them. I think that what we try to do is to stress that it is not superficial. It really takes time to drill down into, we serve all women. What type of women? We serve all moms. What type of mom? Where do they live? Do they have more than one child? All those. We stress a good framework. We stress repetition and iteration and improvement. And we also try to let people know that it takes time. It takes time to find your perfect customer. You're not going to get it out of the gate, and that's okay. That's part of the journey, and you can embrace that journey. A lot of times your customers will come back and tell you exactly what they want if you do the work. So that's how we try to steer our businesses.
Excellent insights and excellent advice there. Cap, I want to just unpeel a little bit about what you said with the example that you gave with your construction company, because you think of construction as really dealing with hard quantities and people that build stuff, and so many folks develop their entire business plan based on the problem their product or service or solution solves. And yet what they're buying, as you point out, is often more emotional in nature, and in terms of not getting fired or getting promoted or looking good to their boss. So can you elaborate on that? How is there a way to quantify that emotional aspect of what your customer is really buying?
Yeah, and thanks, Eric. And even, with the construction company, I talked about buying trust and and easy, but even underlying that is a security component. And so maybe another example that comes to mind is let's say you manufacture or sell shirts. And I'm sure some people buy shirts purely on a commodity consideration. Maybe they want warmth, or they want to be allowed in a restaurant that says no shirt, no service, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of times when people buy a dress shirt, and particularly if you want a bigger margin in the shirts that you make or whatever, you might find that underlying that they're looking at status or validation or looking good, and maybe behind that is maybe a search for a mate or pleasing someone or job status. And behind a lot of that might be security, fulfillment, validation. And I think good marketing people, by the way, understand that. They know how to target your marketing, but it also can affect your business. It can drive how you structure product positioning and the colors you choose, the styles, the market, what you go after. And there's probably a lot more to be said about it, but I think these same considerations could apply to a sandwich shop or a heavy industrial manufacturing company or any other business. If you understand the business that you're really in, I always feel like you can position yourself and do better. And particularly as you, in Monica, and you need to be able to evolve. And it also helps you to see where to evolve by understanding the underlying sort of basis for your business.
Got it. The underlying and sometimes not necessarily readily apparent motivations. Monica, can you give us an example, either in your own career or perhaps that from one of the entrepreneurs with whom you work, where emotion was dispositive over the harder or more functional aspects of sales?
First of all, can you guys hear me a little better? I had to change devices once again, and I think this one is not as loud.
No, you're coming through loud and clear for me. So
oh, fantastic. All right. Well, I don't know that that's a very thoughtful question, Eric. I'm not sure that I'll be able to answer it quite exactly, but I can certainly use an example associated with the WE program, where drilling down into the customer type, the emotional touch points of our customer base were important to define and illuminate in order for us to just do better business or be more impactful as a program. So, when this program was started, it was started as the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. And entrepreneurship is a big term. I frankly don't think, as a global community or national or even local communities, we really have a clear definition on that term. I think some people think that, all entrepreneurs are Facebook companies, which is just not the case. So many of them are micro enterprises. So many of them are mom and pops or Main Street ventures. Some of them are innovation led, like Facebook or others. But I think that that's one a really challenging landscape to start in. And so when this program was started, it was in a similar place as an entrepreneur, kind of like trying to be all things to all entrepreneurs, which is not a winning formula. We, from getting some feedback and understanding what our businesses needed, began to drill down on, well, no, it's really an incubator. We're really focused on foundational aspects of entrepreneurship. We are a program within a pipeline that takes people once they have a strong idea, and we fortify that idea and that business model so that we can hand it off to an Engage or Techstars or something like that. But in drilling down on that, we know that many of our entrepreneurs are between the ages of 35 and 45, which is really the ideal stage because you have some domain expertise, you have some life experience, you have something that we're calling emotional intelligence in terms of managing your journey. We have found that a number of the women that really thrive in our program are looking for information and resources and a community to create a strategy. So that's a very specific type of entrepreneur. That's not, a kid that graduated last year and maybe their parents gave them money to start a company. It's just a different type. And I think that in creating that community and having that definition on the type of women-led early stage startups that we're guiding, we're able to foster a really positive response to the programming. We've got a really high net promoter score where women are recommending the program to other women. We've got a good word of mouth through the community because they feel like we're a valuable part of the pipeline. But all of that took some time, which I do want to tip my hat to the administration and the previous ED that put the program together. It's very hard to start something from scratch. But I also think that the value becomes unlocked over time when you can find out exactly what those customer needs are and begin to apply them and then measure them.
Well, that's such an articulate response and such an important reminder that the cliches of entrepreneurship are just that, cliches, and that they don't necessarily represent the vast majority of entrepreneurs, and as in your case, that do not fall anywhere near the trope of the recent graduate coder in a room with an idea and a dream. So I think that's a really important reminder to both all of us on the call and to CAP's readers. CAP, would you, obviously entrepreneurs are as unique as the stars in the heavens, but are there any common mistakes that you have seen that prevent entrepreneurs from understanding what it is that their customer is really buying? Any blind spots or common pitfalls that you've seen over the course of your career?
Yeah, and maybe I'll harken back to something Monica said earlier, but actually first let me say this too. Monica made some great points today, but one of them is that I think we can be entrepreneurs within bigger organizations, entrepreneurs. My best mentor, as you saw in the book, talked a lot about that. And not-for-profits absolutely seem entrepreneurial to me. I think a lot of the same things that she's spoken about that we're highlighting apply to all institutions. And I even think you can be an entrepreneur leader within your family and just about any institution that you're engaged in. And so there are some universal things, some of the things that Monica talked about. But back to your question, Eric, as far as mistakes, I do think we get caught up in the surface. And part of it, again, is something Monica said earlier. None of us that are entrepreneurs are patient. We want to, we think we know the answers. In many cases, we know the answer better than our customers. And we see the surface issue in front of us, and we just want to attack that and move forward. And it turns out that sometimes if we can approach things a little bit more wisely, maybe we go a little slower now, but we can go faster later. And a great example of that is getting a more real understanding, not only of I mentioned we're talking about what our customer wants to buy, why they want to buy it, but when they're ready to. I've seen some really brilliant innovators that were ahead of their market. Maybe they did understand, what the customer ultimately wanted, but we're presumptive about where the customer was and their ability or positioning to buy it, if that makes sense. So that's a pretty common mistake that I've seen in a lot of my businesses with a brilliant sort of innovator that just and again, I'm probably guilty of this too, not patient enough.
Yeah, and that's a point that you emphasize in the book, Cap, is that you have to figure out what your customers can buy versus what you want to sell them. And so that's going to take some reconnaissance to figure that out, and it may not be the answer that you're looking for, but it is the reality of the present condition. Well, I'd like to now turn to some of our audience questions, and for the first question, I'd like to ask first Monica, and then you, Cap, to weigh in on it. Is, from your experience, does the likability aspect impact a sale? And I'll add a follow-up to that is, can you learn to be more likable, or is that something that's just a trait that you either have it or you don't?
And for clarity, is this the likability of the CEO, the founder, or the leader of the startup?
Well, I think I don't have the full. The question doesn't provide additional clarification on that, but I imagine it's the person that is making the sale. Now, that's another question of whether the CEO and the founder should get out of the way and have a more professional sales organization. But if it's just you're probably the salesperson as well as the CEO. So,
listen. Well, yes. I think likability matters. I do. And I think people have varying degrees of that, and they have different characteristics that play in the market as a leader of a company. And I think for entrepreneurs, it's really important to understand what type of leader you are in order to leverage those strengths. And you might be incredibly likable and fantastic at sales, and you should be out there every day. And if you are not, you should not. You should find
Right.
someone who can sell on your behalf, as long as they have the right message, which gets back to, as long as they can articulate really what your customers are buying. And Eric, if I could, I did want to just go back to that last question about a trap, because it ties into this.
Sure.
One of the biggest traps is marketing. I see so many of my entrepreneurs want to jump out there and hire a marketing firm for this great product or service that they have, but they haven't clarified if people are buying what they're selling, or if their marketing process and message really touches their customer emotionally so that they have to buy it. They're just kind of still on the surface. So yes, likability matters. Figure out who's most likable, or what components of your product, service, or company are most likable, so that people can never tell you no.
Yeah, and I appreciate you clarifying that, Monica, because inherent within the entrepreneur's journey is the curse of knowledge, and so the entrepreneur is very well steeped in how great the product or solution is, but to the uninitiated, that may not be as readily apparent. And so having the skills to bring folks along to enlighten them as to why this should be the clear and immediate choice is sometimes a step that entrepreneurs shortcut at their peril. At least I've found that. Cap, any thoughts on likability and whether likability can be learned?
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, and thank you, Monica, for another great answer. And I'm also going to sort of piggyback on that. I like that you ask, are you talking about the founder of the business? Because a lot of my companies I've seen where they built the business on the founder being trusted and liked. And to me, that's not a replicable, sustainable business. And so it's an important point in the evolution of the business is where you shift from people buying it just because they like and trust the founder to instead learning to trust and like the solution or product and the people that they interface with in the organization as a whole. And so that's sometimes it's a difficult evolution, and sometimes it's even hard for founders with their egos to give up on, they enjoy feeling like people trust and like them, and to transition it to where the relationship is with the business is a challenging thing. But yeah, I do, likability. I remember when I was in middle school, Eric, I at some point ended up in sort of a scuffle with another kid. The other kids were cheering for him, and I looked around and I realized I didn't really like the other kids and they didn't like me. And it kind of hurt my feelings. I was that kid. I go home and in my dad's shelves was a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I bet everybody here's read it.
Sure.
But it struck me that, one of the things is, and there's probably a lot to it, learning to listen and all, but one of the big takeaways, and I got several from it, but I just thought I need me some of that. And one of the things was to really learn to like other people. And it is disarming. If you genuinely like and care about other people, they pick up on that. We have all these subconscious indicators, and you can try to learn all the tricks. But if you really want people to like and trust you, be trustworthy and like them. And then you don't need to worry about all these other tricks. It starts to take care of itself. And if you're genuinely empathetic and care and want the best for others, at some point they're going to pick up on that and they're going to trust and like that. So you asked about likability. I think that's probably where I would start.
Well, that's certainly heartening to know that some genuineness is better than the tricks in that department, and that the fact that we likable people is not all smoke and mirrors, but there's some substance behind that. So great point.
Eric, I see, forgive me, I'm going to interrupt. I see Jeff Bond on this call, and Claire was nice enough to connect us with him, and we were on his fantastic podcast. But the whole time I was talking to him, I was just thinking, what a likable guy. He comes across as likable. And I think that's what he brings a lot of value, but I think that's part of what made his podcast successful. And Monica, you're very likable. And
Not
I just think
everyone says that, Cap.
I really do think it can be a success factor in so many ways if you marry it with, integrity and competence and other things.
But, I will add, because I don't think this word has been a part of the conversation, and I hope you guys can't hear all the sirens outside of my window, but for the entrepreneur that asked that question, I think authenticity is the most important. Authenticity. People may not like you, but if they believe that you believe what you're doing, they're going to buy, because they're like, that's the real thing. So I would err on the side of authenticity.
Great addition, and certainly understand why Mr. Bond's podcast has achieved the popularity it has, given that insight from you, Cap. Let's take another audience question, and this is a two-part question. I'll direct it to you first, Monica. What are some of the tools that a company can use to collect ongoing customer feedback? And the second part of the question, how do you use this data to know if it's time to adapt your product or service or hold off?
Yeah, a good old survey, either through a Google form or some, one or two questions that you ask at the end of your service or the end of someone buying your product. You want to create some type of a feedback loop where you're constantly getting information on how people are responding to your business. And I think the trick is to use the data, right? You want to look at it in a consistent way over a period of time, and then when you see changes, you make adjustments based off of that feedback. Again, it's not a quick process, and it is not a two-piece puzzle. It's really the work, but the trick is having a process, having a clear questions that that drive the outcome that you're looking for. Maybe I should back up. First thing, you should have an outcome. You should define your outcome. Then you define the questions that lead to that outcome. Then you define a process for getting those questions answered, and you check in consistently, maybe once a month, once a week, whatever it is, and then you act on it. There's just no short story to that, but it's so rewarding to people. So a good old survey, you can use Google Forms. You can use a sign-up sheet on your website for people to give you feedback. You can use Google Analytics to see who's coming in and getting that information, which is not so much customer interactive, but it's still good data. Basic tools. And if you really want to get advanced, and you're already collecting all of this data through your web traffic, your mobile traffic, events that you're doing, you want to maybe upload that information into the cloud and start to apply some more sophisticated analytics on it, because perhaps There's some programs that can show you things that you can't see because you've got 1,000 things going on, right? And it does require you to clear your mind and look at data and really see the insights from there. But it doesn't need to be that complicated at first. It can really be a Google form, or giving someone your iPad to answer 2 questions after they purchase your product or purchase the product from you, something like that.
Well, that's got to come as a great relief to many, especially early stage entrepreneurs that may not have the resources for a lot of whiz-bang analytical tools, but it's heartening that you can start with the basics and with even free tools, as long as you're asking the right questions that get you the insights you need. Cap, same questions for you. Do you have favorite tools or methodologies of soliciting customer feedback?
Yeah, and thanks, Eric and Monica, for your answer. And the one thing I'll sort of echo with Monica also is asking the right questions in the right way. So if you ask people, when you walk in the store, if somebody says, "Can I help you?" I think their automatic response is generally no or whatever. But in your surveys, if you ask, tell me 3 things that I can do better, or structure it, ask the right questions in the right way. But there are a lot of great CRM systems. I'm kind of dating myself, but I remember sitting at a dinner with Tom Siebel when he got started, and I watched the evolution of
The legend.
Salesforce. And there are so many tools out there, but I've always liked the idea of integrating your CRM with, and some of those have great sort of relationship systems. But at the end of the day, sales is about relationships, and that relationship of what people trust and what they like. And so, it might be sort of a different interaction if you're selling a shirt or a sandwich than if you're selling enterprise software or construction. But I do feel like that there's an opportunity to ask questions, to learn about people, to understand that person who, maybe in the big organization is thinking, "Hey, I want to not get fired. I want to look good. I want to trust you for that," and so forth. Or the maybe the person that interacts when you're selling the sandwich or the shirt. And so I think you structure according to what gets you the best sort of underlying understanding. And also, one of the, and forgive me, I'm a data nerd, but sometimes we kind of fall in love with our current answers, and competitors, the markets evolve, and so I think we've got to be willing to evolve the way we look at our data, the way we ask our questions, the way we interface, and develop our relationships also.
Awesome. Well, I love the idea of shirt and sandwich being sold by the same firm. So maybe that's an entrepreneurial idea that is yet to come. This next question from the audience is one that is especially near and dear to my own heart as a branding guy. How do you ensure that your messaging and branding effectively communicates the value proposition to your customers? And I think this probably dovetails with some of what you said earlier, Monica, in terms of knowing what your customers want to buy. But any further thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's a lot of trial and error. I mean, when you're talking about messaging, changes in 1 or 2 words in your sales pitch can emote different feelings with a customer base. And you have to try those things out. I think this audience would likely be familiar with like A/B testing on an email thread.
Sure.
You can change a couple of words in the subject line and you're going to see a different response rate. I think the same is the case for your value proposition as you're out talking to customers, again, whether it's a product or a service, and you see when their eyes light up when you say certain things, go in that direction. But I think that how do you ensure it? You ensure it by continuously challenging it and getting feedback and then making changes based on that feedback. I want to point this out. So many of my entrepreneurs have come back to me at this stage, this early stage. They're like, "I thought my customer was X, but it's Y." And that happens quite a bit. You have an idea in your mind about who exactly, is going to buy what you're selling, and it just could be completely different based off a lot of nuance in the market. And it's what gives you a competitive advantage if you're able to incorporate that new information, incorporate those new customers. It might turn out that your value is different than what you had imagined, and it could be a gift if you can see it that way. But I think that the way you ensure it is continuously get feedback and iterate and make changes on that.
Sounds like listening to the customer once again and adjusting accordingly.
I feel like a broken record, Eric. I apologize.
No, that's you can never say that frequently enough. But Cap, any thoughts on messaging and branding and how to make sure that they're aligned with your business objectives?
Yeah, and thank you. And I think this question ties in very much to some of the things that we're talking about today. I read a lot of books about, I guess, persuasion, influence, subconscious messaging, and maybe some of the best books. A guy named Cialdini wrote a book called Influence and another called Persuasion. But there are a lot of resources out there now. But sometimes we don't even realize why we're buying the things that we do. Of course, a lot of it does go back to ultimately trust and like and validation, those same things. But I think when you understand those things, they can help you. So if you recognize that, you know, the customer that you're targeting is, you know, they're looking for some sort of validation, you can understand that. You can position your product, but also put it in front of the audiences that obviously fit that. And I do think great marketing and messaging people understand that. But for you as the business person, having a deeper understanding of where your marketing and advertising people are trying to go helps you to put, I guess, a better solution in your hands to get them there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Next question from our audience. How do you balance the needs and wants of different customer segments within your target market? And Monica, this goes back to a few things that you've said earlier. One, that sometimes your entrepreneurs think they're selling A, but they're selling B. And then secondly, that you shouldn't try and be all things to all people, particularly when you're first starting out. So where is that balance given the heterogeneity of a customer base? Is there a sweet spot in it?
I like the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your profits comes from 20% of your customers, and figure out who that is. We've got a great framework that someone from the TurkNet group, Marty Gupta, comes in and teaches to our cohorts. It's critical assessment planning, right? And it's based off the 80-20 rule. Just understanding, you know, what is your outcome? Who are the customers that are going to get you there? What do you have to do to satisfy that customer? How much time does it take you? And so in that scenario, you might think, oh, customer A is who I think my customer is, and it takes me like a week to sell something to them. And then customer C is not that important to me, but they seem to buy it in a day, and I don't have to do that much for them to buy it. You might need to focus on customer C. But again, you got to list all those things out and really understand what sort of inputs, sort of energy, what sort of resources you're putting in to acquire a customer. And then when you can lay all that out and then step back from it and really understand who's going to give you the most traction the most quickly, that I think is how you balance the needs of those customers. Again, you might have a customer that is super loud and you think that they're going to get you, to your next milestone. But that's just all on the surface, as Cap was saying. Like when you drill down into it, they are not really aligned with your value proposition. They want you to do all sorts of things. They want you to add on 10 different trinkets to the product and before they'll buy it. They're high demand, and that's not, I think, a good use of your time as a startup and as an entrepreneur. You want to find your traction and then figure out how to build on that so you can really sprint towards the end and give yourself an advantage against your competitors, and also make your life easier because entrepreneurship is challenging. So you want to find momentum.
That is truer words were never spoken, and hence the roller coaster motif on this cover of Finding the Way. We're at the quarter hour here, so we will let Monica have the last word. But please, if you have not picked up your copy wherever fine books are sold, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Amazon, booksellers, airports, everywhere. National bestseller, Finding the Way. So much more in here. Monica, thank you so much for being with us, and Cap, always a pleasure. And for those of you who are interested, we'll be back a week from today in March for the third essential. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all.